Okay, I really hope this is working okay. Let me check the microphone. Okay, I recorded this video a bunch and it's been getting really annoying, so I'm just doing this live and then YouTube will automatically upload it. So we're going to be talking about the thinking and feeling functions here. Hitherto, the thinking and feeling functions have never really been defined. They've only been described. Every instance of someone giving it a definition that I've seen has been them actually describing the contents that are generally associated with the thinking and feeling functions, rather than kind of the structure itself of the thinking and feeling functions. To be fair, this is Jung's fault. This isn't really anyone's fault. Jung himself got it wrong when he even called the thinking and feeling functions the thinking and feeling functions, because he inherently bound them to particular types of content. So people will go around saying that thinking is about logical judgment and feeling is about ethical judgment or something like this. The first problem with that is that if the very basic structure of logical judgment is the question of whether A equals B. Can you see that? No, you can't really see that, huh? I'm gonna turn off these lights. It's still really difficult to see. If that's the basic structure of logical judgment, then there's nothing preventing A from being the good or the beautiful or anything else related to morality. So thinking can do the same things that the feeling function can do. And there's not really much left over for the feeling function to do. So what I propose is that the thinking function you can think of as rigorous judgment in favor of coherence, and the feeling function you can think of as ethical judgment in favor of completeness. Not ethical judgment, geez. Merciful judgment in favor of completeness. Oh my gosh, going crazy. So a very basic example of that is we have some toys on the ground. If we sort them according to a standard, we say the blue toys are in and the red toys are out, we will have a coherent kind of separation of the toys, a coherent categorization of the toys, but we will have remainders. We will have things outside. We will have an incomplete system if we only include those red toys. Whereas the feeling function will have a complete system by including everything in its judgment, but it won't be coherent. There will be no coherent category applied. So the excess of the thinking function is obviously this tyrannical strictness, this enforcement of a standard, while the excess of the feeling function is confusion, chaos. It's like you have too much in the category. You're letting strangers into your house. It's not good. So yeah, that's the very basic pattern. Let's turn to how this works with a chair. We could have part of a chair. We have its pattern, which is to be something that can be sat on. And the body of the chair hosts that purpose. And there are aspects of the chair that are sort of the functional aspects. That's what thinking is going to include in its judgment of the chair. It's like, these are the functional aspects. This is what it does. The feeling function is also going to include ornamental aspects. So if the chair has like a bunch of flowery kind of cushions on it, the feeling function wants to include those in its judgment of whether the chair is good or bad. These will be things that don't explicitly host the pattern of the chair, but are nonetheless still involved in the body of the chair. So that's another way in which feeling is merciful and forms a more complete system. That's probably an example of kind of thinking and feeling working together very well. We could also give an example of like a pile of wood and nails. The feeling function is going to embrace this pile and affirm it and say that it can become a chair, so we should include it. Whereas the thinking function kind of comes down with the standard of like, it's not a chair now. The feeling function, on the other hand, will say like, no, it can be called to this beautiful pattern of chairness. I once was talking to an IFP, and she was saying that to her, the true good person is who the person really is to her. This higher calling in which they can assent to. So yeah, that's the example with mercy and rigor for the chair. Let's go to extroversion and introversion. So extroversion, as I define it, is a movement of attention from the one to the many. And introversion is a movement of attention from the many to the one. So for introverted thinking, I'm going to draw a car. Hopefully it shows up. Yeah, that's good enough. We have our car. And introverted thinking is going to come in and give us a judgment of coherence, a single judgment of coherence, which is going to be the basis for the cars being able to function. It's going to be that place where the pattern of the car to drive is going to be bound to the car itself. And that single coherence for like an introverted thinking type would be the engine. This forms the foundation stone, the agreement between pattern and body, which then becomes the source of the rest of the agreements that allow the car to function, that allow the car to host its body. So that's introverted thinking. The ISTP is famous for, the INTP too, for cutting away the ornamental aspects, right? They cut away those aspects which do not explicitly host the pattern of the chair, because those are relevant to feeling, not to thinking. So yeah, this is the single source within the multiplicity, right? The extroverted thinking type, and you really can't see that. The extroverted thinking type, it cares about the agreements between pattern and body outside of the car. So its relationship to multiplicity. This is why extroverted thinking always looks like it's using some external standard. It doesn't care whether the thing is internally coherent. It wants to know whether it can create other agreements between pattern and body. Can this car get me to the store where I can integrate food into my body and continue to host my pattern? Can I create a coherence there outside of the car? So that's why it's related to practicality very often. So yeah, I find this image is helpful for getting the intuition of inside and outside with introversion and extroversion. I feel like inside and outside might be easier for people than unity and multiplicity. Because inside will be more unified than the outside, because there's always more outside you than usual. I wanted to steer clear of that originally. The fact that there is an inside to everything, not the human person that has an inside. I think it works well enough. Anyways, that's a digression. The feeling function. The feeling function we can talk about in sort of a negative sense and in a positive sense. I sort of already talked about this, but like you'll have a introverted feeling type who cares a lot about, they'll have like these multiple propositions in a political discussion, and each of these propositions will be super important to them. And an introverted thinking type is going to come along and say, look, you can't build, this cannot work as a foundation stone. You have disagreements. There's an incoherence here. So you're not going to be able to derive a kind of coherent system from this. And the introverted feeling type is like, I don't care. I'm not interested in coherence. I'm interested in completeness. And you're like tearing my soul apart by telling me this. So that's kind of the negative way of talking about introverted feeling. The positive way is like talking about aesthetics. Introverted feeling is famous, stereotypically for being interested in music and aesthetics like that. And this is the active element of mercy. This is that which calls that which is not good into some kind of participation in the good. You'll have like these negative feelings in music, and it's this completeness that comes about. You don't have to just reject your negative feelings, unuseful feelings. You can integrate them in this complete whole through music or through art in general. So that's kind of the movement type, and it's related to a single complete thing. So an introverted feeling type will dislike when you try to take apart one thing and make it fit into a larger pattern. It's like, no, you're making this one thing not complete anymore. You're destroying its integrity. Well, the extroverted feeling type does not feel that way. The extroverted feeling type wants completeness, but it wants completeness between things. So this is like NFJ types are pretty famous for like saying we're gonna kind of get rid of the parts of these two different philosophies or theologies or cultures that don't mix, and we're gonna like make them agree in this kind of synthetic whole, and it's gonna be, wonderful. It's gonna be all Carl Jungy. And the introverted feeling type will feel like you're getting rid of some of the richness in these different cultures by making them agree too much. Like by trying to find an overarching pattern, they feel like the extroverted feeling type is losing out on the internal completeness for the external completeness, for a multiple completeness. And then the SFJ type obviously is famous for kowtowing to like convention for the sake of agreement between things, for the sake of completeness. And so one of the interesting relationships here, I wonder if I can make this work. One of the interesting relationships here is that you can kind of see how the extroverted functions are almost a like after effect from the introverted functions. If you sacrifice through introverted thinking the idiosyncrasies for like one single agreement, you say like, okay, no, this isn't it. This isn't. It's this higher thing that's it. Then it makes it very easy for you to be like, well, all these things are basically the same. Like we don't really care about them. But, and you're like, yeah, they agree, whatever. But if you're an introverted feeling type and you say, no, everything involved in this has to participate in the identity, then you end up with more X's between things. It's like, no, there's more disagreements because more things are relevant. So yeah, that's it.